Welcome back to Conversations for the Good. Good morning, Dr. Jane.
Good morning, Anna. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's good to be together.
Yes, it is, Dr. Jane. Our recent conversations have touched upon so many dimensions of self awareness and self discovery, changing our mindset, self reflection, taking risks to have the life we want. They all appear as building blocks to potential life changes, both big and small. Can we take a little time this morning to talk about this?
Sure, Anna. And let's start by putting this in a context of change, which quite frankly is the only guarantee in life. Change is the only constant. Nothing is permanent. We're changing as an organism, as individual people, as a species. We're in constant change, from our bodies, our feelings, our thoughts, right down to a cellular level. The process is ongoing change. We're evolving and we're changing. And this takes place over a lifetime as we develop and mature, really cradle to grave, so to speak. And this is such a natural process that we're either aware of or we can be totally blind to. And either way, it's still occurring.
So, this is part of the human condition and it's taking place in many ways, whether or not I'm paying attention, right?
That's
So it makes sense to me. I think back, 15 years ago, and my life has taken many shifts and turns. In some ways, I'm entirely a different person. And I've changed physically. My view of the world has shifted, even my relationships.
Well, Anna, and that's right. We pass through many changes. Some are more obvious, like the exterior changes that we go through from childhood to adulthood, are certainly the aging process in our adulthood. It's a normal growth and development over a span of decades. Our physical appearance through a lifetime is sometimes the most obvious. So some changes are a natural evolution of life, and others can be influenced by things like behavior or lifestyle choices. Think about, we've talked about this in the past, about what we consume, whether it's food, alcohol, social media, and how that really influences our health.
Yeah. So, how we take care of ourselves, how we deal with stress, these are surely influencing that process.
Yes. And then there are the interior changes, like how we perceive the world and ourselves. Our history, what's happened to us, stays intact, but over time we may interpret it differently, due to personal experiences or sometimes insights that we haven't always had all of a sudden appear and shift that. We may choose to shift our beliefs or our values, due to people or circumstances, that occur in our daily lives. This may be the result of what we observe and experience in our work environment or our social engagements, or our interests might shift and change. The ever-changing world around us has a significant influence on us. And many of the changes that we go through are actually choices. It's really about the choice of and how we see life unfolding, the anticipation of these changes. Things like, like finding a permanent job after our education or the training that we decide upon. That anticipatory piece is, changing in order to better ourselves or to continue dealing with life. At other times, things happen that are totally unexpected. Like, it could be any kind of various opportunities that either appear or disappear from our lives that call upon us to make new choices, which we change in response to that. And how we interpret and manage and learn from these situations are choices all in and of themselves and make all the difference in the world as to how we experience the quality of life.
It's like the saying, life keeps coming at us, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so many natural occurrences, sometimes incredibly challenging.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes there are things that happen in such a way that we become very aware that we need to be instrumental in the change process. These often feel like what I very often call a forced choice. We really, in the moment and in the experience, realize that we have to change or reinvent ourselves, not just to accommodate what's happening, at that particular time, but we really know on some level that we need to come out on the other side different, new, improved, and face that
Mhm.
challenge. And the newness is what is the change process.
So, what kinds of situations are you referring to, Dr. Jane?
Well, there are life altering events, Anna, serious illness, death, traumatic events, divorce, the loss of a job, even the pandemic. These are all forced choices. Very often we're blindsided by them. And then there are other triggers for change that can include things like feeling like I'm stuck or life doesn't seem to be satisfying. Maybe I'm experiencing burnout or realize that I'm living someone else's dream. So I'm lacking vitality. I'm lacking any sense of personal growth. I'm not living the life that I want. And I'm not aligned maybe with my beliefs or my values. And realize at some point in time, oh boy, things really need to be different here. And then there's also that piece of our intuition or that inner knowing that life really is at a place that I know that change is absolutely necessary. And these can be experienced on a continuum of intensity from mild to really severe. I really feel like I'm really being hit hard with, wow, this has to change. I have to do something different here.
So, the life situation or internal sense pulls us towards change, or at least a realization that change is needed.
Well, yes. However, uh, very often we know what's going on, but we don't quite hear ourselves, and we don't quite hear that pull the first several times. What we kind of maybe ignore it or put it off. We don't want to look at it. The readiness for change can be very fickle. So it can hit us several times before we really pay attention. We've all had the experience of knowing that we need to alter something or change some part of our lives, and yet we drag our feet. It's like, I'm not ready. I'm too busy. I don't want to. I'm too afraid. It's too uncertain. However, for many, there comes a time when the need to change lands so clearly, with such intense clarity, that the willingness seems to appear out of nowhere, and we become ready to change and reinvent ourselves. We may experience this as a calling. It could be kind of a deep inner voice revealing a path uh, that might lead to a better version of ourselves. This beckoning to reinvent ourselves really can move us to greater alignment with a deeper sense of our purpose and meaning, to live more authentically. That's a key, to live more authentically. And this requires courage, the courage to honor what's true for us, to finally see it for what it is, and really ready ourselves to move toward it. And for some, this happens once, and for others, multiple times in a lifetime.
The term reinvent, it's an interesting choice. I really like the fact that you use that word. It has a different feel to it as we talk about change.
Well, I think you're right, Anna. And the word for me highlights ownership and responsibility, kind of taking the reins of life. Words like evolve have a more kind of a natural process that may or may not be, within my awareness. Another word, transformation, also represents a process of either kind of induced or spontaneous change. And sometimes I think of transformation as being kind of a parallel process of how we do reinvent ourselves. So they both kind of align together as they move forward in the change process. And the reason I like event is also because it really references personal control. I'm in control of doing the taking away and the rebuilding of it. It takes on the ring of kind of self as the project. It's almost like we're the fixer-uppers, so to speak. So we launched the project from our past and our present, where we've been, where we are now, and we're aware of the need for change. and our readiness for change. That's appearing also. So we're at a place where we inventory and review the lessons and experiences of our lives that really has enabled us to be where we are and see things a little more clearly. And then we create a plan and move it forward.
I like that analogy. Yet not all fixer-uppers are equal.
Yeah,
And some need cosmetic changes, others need to be taken down to the studs. Huge differences, right?
huge differences. And I really appreciate you bringing this out because this is the beauty of the reinventing process. It's the individual that calls out what needs to be the job at hand. How extensive does the project need to be? And our self-reflection is an absolute imperative on this. We're taking a risk to create a life aligned with a better part of ourselves, that best and highest part of ourselves. And in doing so, we're answering a call to be truly authentic, maybe more authentic than we've ever been in our lives. So we may find change hard. Remember, we often resist things that are unfamiliar. However, there are times that staying the same is just no longer an option. So we don't have to come up with a perfect plan to start the process. We can revise as we move forward. The key is we have to move forward. So procrastinating or avoiding, it's like don't wait to start and get lost in that, why me or why now? We'll discover that as we step into the discomfort and make it okay. It'll really become kind of why not me? When you feel the fear, you feel the resistance, and you keep moving forward. This is really, Anna, when we tell fear to take the back seat. We become the authority. We become our own authority. And all of a sudden, my authenticity is in the driver's seat.
We're using the present moment awareness once again and turning inward. It feels so familiar, and I'm facing into that process, and it's like a well-worn path, comforting, reassuring.
Well, that's right. We've been here before, time and time again. And we're tuning into ourselves, seeking the truth in our self-reflection, in that present moment awareness, and asking questions that we've touched on before. Who am I? What are my roles, or what are the roles that I operate from? What's my job here? What's my identity? What do I take myself to be? What do I think others take myself to be? So we're really, really diving into core values, core beliefs, our likes, our dislikes. And then it's also, who am I without all those roles? Because sometimes we become so attached to them that we forget that there is more to ourselves. What is my heart's desire? What really matters? What are the priorities? And also this leads to, what are my strengths? How am I connected, or what am I connected to as far as any kind of inner guidance or wisdom? This is kind of what I call the inner GPS. This is the inner guide that allows me to really discover things about myself, and do I feel connected? And what am I being guided to? It's also about being realistic about our limitations. What could or what does impede my progress? Maybe it's people pleasing. Maybe I abandon myself to please everybody else or do what everybody else expects. So this is also asking, who will be impacted? And how does this affect my fears? How does it affect my resistances? And then there's this broad brushstroke that we also need to consider. And that is, and we've touched upon this before as well, inventorying our mind, body, spirit dimensions in life. Am I actively attuned to myself as a whole? As I say, this is the broad brushstroke. And do my lifestyle choices nourish this?
Yeah, I would imagine that for many of us, that last question is what we may be wanting to reinvent, living life with the whole person, body, mind, spirit, health, and wellness.
Well, that's right. I think that this can very often be really the baseline for many of us, a real starting point. And doing this initial self-reflection, we can begin to solidify what I want. The want is essential because being able to answer the want, the what, it's really providing information for our own personal mission statement. This can be any kind of short summary that highlights our values, our priorities, the intentions that we have, how we're aligned with that best version of ourselves, that authentic self. And then we're ready to put together and launch a plan.
Well, this is where it really starts to happen.
This is where it really starts to happen, Anna, because we're taking ideas and desires and inspiration and moving them to an action plan that needs to be very believable. It needs to be realistic. So believable, achievable. We have to be able to measure it at some point in time, kind of see our process. We want to be clear about what we're going to do and when. And then it's also, and this is so important, it's okay to start small. What we're looking for is continuous improvement, being able to see our progress and allowing that progress to nourish us, assessing it as we go. Also the progress, but also, am I able to sustain this? What am I doing that really needs to happen to keep it moving? And to assess it on a daily basis, just kind of do a check-in weekly, or maybe months in. How am I doing? And we've also talked about the 3 R's, as we review our process and our progress, to take a look at what's working. And if something is working, we want to really retain it and replicate it. Do it again. Do it again. And if it's not working, then we need some kind of remediation. And this is where we move into revising the plan. How do I need to do it differently to stay on the path?
Well, this is the basic plan, kind of the blueprint of how to achieve our mission.
Exactly. The mission statement is the destination. It's the what of my reinvention process. What I want, and then the plan of action are the 492 things that I need to get there.
So what else do we need to consider, Dr. J?
Well, the big question, Anna, whenever we start a change process and this reinvention process, really has to do with how will I be able to sustain the plan? How will I be able to maintain my commitment? So we really want to do some additional inquiry into this. Things like, what do I actually need to stay on track? Do I need someone else's support? Is that necessary for me? And am I tuned into my internal GPS to really pick up on the guidance of the directions that I need to go? And also looking at what are my strengths and what are the skills I need to continue to strengthen my process? So it's about skills. It's also about practices that support the process. And do I have a solid self-care plan? Because this really is the foundation or the container that will help sustain me through the change and reinvention process. And the other piece is what inspires me. What inspires me? Comes from it's a word that comes from the Greek that means of the spirit. And so it's really about what nourishes me along the path. And then we also come to that place of, do I have a fixed or a growth mindset? And who is available or what is available to nurture me or maybe mentor me or support me?
Yeah, so many of our conversations, we offer tools, skills, and practices to nurture this process. We've really been consistent with the episodes that inform and encourage making conscious choices for the greater good. Can we review the material that supports the reinvention process a little bit?
Sure. It all starts with what we've continued to call present moment awareness, which initiates and enables that self-reflection process. I'm staying tuned in. We can assess where we've been, where we are now, and where we want to go. And with this foundation awareness skill, we can really tune into our thought stream and begin to discover our mindset. What's supporting me, and also what gets in the way, or what are the barriers. So it's looking at my worldview, and is it fixed and resisting change, or is it more of a growth mindset that's open to the change process and open to creative problem solving.
So, well, we've covered a lot of territory, which touch upon the ingredients, the support that this desire to, reinvent ourselves. 46 previous episodes full of those, support systems there, all designed to inform, instruct, and inspire us. Themes like gratitude, willingness, courage, self-care, mindfulness.
Yes. Our videos and our podcasts also include a variety of exercises and techniques, both to quiet our physiology, first of all, so that we can access that more developed, sophisticated thinking brain, for creative thinking, and also to manage our reactivity, which can really sabotage our efforts. We've also included techniques that strengthen and balance the energy system, and these can be incredibly important in times when we feel unmotivated. And that can hit at any point in time where we're feeling unmotivated, we're feeling resistant to change, or sometimes we dip into seemingly out of nowhere negative thinking or negative mood states. So all these skills and techniques support our ability to be more consistently aware. And that increases the likelihood of making conscious choices. This is a familiar word. Conscious choice allows us the options that are really outside of our old conditioned responses. So our reinvention is composed of new choices, and these new choices align us with the best version of ourselves and the life we really want. So the more consistent we are with the new choices, the more our brains fire in new directions, and it really makes new thinking and new behavior patterns more fluid and more accessible as time goes on.
So the more we do it, the easier it gets. And it seems to me that would increase our self-confidence and our determination.
Oh, Anna, you're so right. The growing sense of confidence and determination fuels, and it's also a piece that sustains the process of reinventing ourselves, changing ourselves. And so we're able to maintain the course. We're able to keep things going. We're able to revise as necessary. And in doing this, we're always seeking the inner guidance to follow that next right thing along the way.
Yes, this is all such amazing and wonderful information, Dr. Jane. You've used the term inspired action in past conversations. I think it definitely fits here.
I think you're right.
Thank you, Dr. Jane. Until our next conversation.
Thanks, Anna.